Hi there folks, welcome back to my channel, and for this video I'm going to be talking about the pros and cons of traditional publishing versus the pros and cons of independent or self-publishing. And as you will all know, I independently publish my books through Kindle Direct Publishing, or KDP, which is with Amazon. And I have in the past had some of my work traditionally published. The experience for me wasn't a positive experience, so that's why I have chosen for myself to independently publish my work. But I have left the door open in the future that if the opportunity arises and it works for me, then I could possibly traditionally publish some of my own work in the future. But again, something that is an option, not really focusing on at the moment, focusing on independently publishing my own work. But every writer is different, every writer follows their own path, does their own thing, so they have to kind of lay themselves open and take what options they can. So before I get on to the main topic of this video, if you are enjoying my videos, if you are enjoying my channel, if you click on that subscriber button, click on that notification bell, leave some likes, leave some comments, it's always really appreciated. And it does help the channel to grow. So to get on to the pros and cons, I will start with the pros of traditional publishing. And so with traditional publishing, when people are starting out wanting to be writers, wanting to go down that route, become published authors, published writers, and I know it's a dream that a lot of people have, and a lot of people kind of want to follow that as a career. And a lot of them kind of look at traditional publishing as the route that they want to take, because they see that as being a bit kind of more prestigious. It's seen as being more kind of like that's the route for success. That's kind of the route that you take to get your work noticed and sold, and for you to get onto the bestseller lists. And generally that there is a kind of certain level of truth to that, but I'm not saying that there isn't any success in self-publishing, because I don't know if many of you know this, but I think with 50 Shades of Grey, okay, I'm not the biggest fan of 50 Shades of Grey because I do have issues with that series, but there is one fact, one kind of interesting nugget about it, is that book started out as a kind of independently published fan fiction, and it went on to become probably one of the most successful trilogies of the 21st century. It sold millions of copies, it had movies made about it, so she must have been doing something right. And she ended up getting taken on by a traditional publisher, so it's something that can happen. So with traditional publishing, some of the pros for it is when you are taken on by a publisher, they will edit it for you, and it is a process that you will have to be involved in, because a lot of times they will take your manuscript, go through it, kind of mark up where they want to make changes, so like spelling, grammar, possible changes to the plot, maybe saying like, okay, that bit doesn't add anything to the story, that bit doesn't make any sense, we like this bit, expand on this, add something here, add something there, and they kind of work with you in order for you to kind of produce and create a better product that is more marketable and easier to sell. Because you have to remember, publishing companies, publishing houses are businesses, they want to make a profit. And they will also take on to do the cover art, so they'll actually have people who will create the actual front cover, so they'll do the artwork, all that kind of stuff, they'll do the blurb, everything, they'll get that all sorted. And they will all kind of organise the promotion for you as well. This is something, okay, you will have to play a part in the promotion process. You will probably have to go to events, be interviewed, do different things online. But they will facilitate it and pay for it as well. And if you do get your book traditionally published, you will very likely get your books sold in shops like Waterstones. So you'll have your book up on a shelf being sold in one of the biggest names in British bookshops, or whatever the international kind of American, Australian, New Zealand version is. And because the publishing company will be taking over most of the kind of the background work, so the editing, the covers, all that kind of stuff, it frees up a bit more time for you to actually focus more on the writing. Okay, I know that most writers actually have day jobs and have other responsibilities, but because they're taking on the responsibility of the editing, such like, it frees up at least a wee bit more time for you to kind of focus on the more creative side of things. And if you're really lucky, okay, I know this doesn't always happen with most authors when they get a publishing deal, but it can happen that you can sometimes get a cash advance. So they'll essentially go, right, okay, there's like £5,000 as a cash advance, which again is always nice, but there are certain cons to be taken into account with traditional publishing as well. With a lot of companies, I'm not too sure how much people can realise this about most publishing companies, unless you are a big name. If you're just kind of starting to kind of have your work published and have your stuff kind of taken on by publishing companies, and you're a bit of a new name, you don't really have a following or whatever, they will try and spend as little money on you as they possibly can in order to try and maximise their profit. So even though they will have somebody edit your book for you, they will do the cover art for you, yeah, they will try and kind of do it where it gets done, but maybe not spend as much time or money on it as they may spend on someone else. And also with promotion, they will try and again spend as little money on new authors as they can, and they probably will try and get the new author in question to do as much of the promotion work for them as possible. And that is kind of something that not many people realise. But it does have to be remembered that a lot of all these publishing companies are out to make a profit. They're businesses. They want to reduce their expenditure and increase how much money they make. It's just how businesses go. And with a lot of authors, they don't get paid until the book is actually made a profit. So if the book, once the kind of the costs for the editing, the cover art, promotion, and if you have had a cash advance, that's taken as part of expenditure. Once that is covered, then you start seeing some money coming in. Might not be very much, because with traditional publishing, the royalties don't tend to be very high. And I've also heard that it's like with traditional publishers, they tend to pay twice a year, and the days when you get paid tend to kind of fluctuate. It doesn't always tend to be on the same day every year, which and apparently doesn't matter how well a book sells. You could be like Stephen King and sell millions of books a year. You could be somebody who's selling maybe a couple of thousand books a year, and yeah, you'll get both will get paid twice a year. And a lot of people also don't seem to realise that with a lot of the big publishing companies, so if you're taken on as an author with a traditional publishing company, there's a kind of certain level of you losing creative control. Is that the publishing company will have the last say on the cover art, on the blurb. They will have a bit more say on the actual promotion. So it's very much the ball is in their court, that they can have more control of the process. And the publishing process with a traditional publishing company can also be that wee bit longer as well. So it can be something, it can be quite frustrating, especially with new authors, when they just want to they've written a book, they want to get it out, they want to kind of have it on the bookshelves, but things are being slowed up or held up, and yeah, it can get frustrating. And one thing a lot of people kind of find when trying to get into traditional publishing is that it can be very difficult to get your foot in the door. It can be very difficult to get over that threshold, to get your first book accepted and published, and for you to kind of move on from there. Because sometimes even if you do get your first book published, if it is not seen as being successful, it can make things a bit more difficult to get picked up again by another traditional publishing company. And one thing that a lot of people have to be aware of as well, sometimes authors can get trapped in contracts that are complicated, that they might want to get out of, and it can become like a bit of a kind of wrangled mess, and trying to get back out of that can be difficult, and it's again another frustrating aspect of being traditionally published. But again, I don't want to put people off going down the route of traditional publishing. If that is the route that you feel is the route for you, definitely go for it, definitely try it. But again, always look into your options, and again, always be aware of what's going on, and just don't let him to take you for a fool. But again, to go on to look at traditional, not traditional publishing, I've already spoken about that, to talk about the independent publishing or self-publishing, depending on who you speak to. And so again, start with the pros. With independent publishing, you do have more creative control. It's up to you to work out your cover art, to kind of organise your cover, to write your blurb, to kind of write the story and get it edited and make sure that it's up to as good a standard as possible. It's up to you to get it promoted and get the word out there and get people to know about it. And it's easier to kind of gain access and faster to gain access to independent publishing than it is to traditional publishing. As you have sites like Kindle Direct Publishing, you have Lulu, you have Barnes & Noble Press, so there's different kind of ways to gain access to independent publishing platforms, so that gives you the option to kind of get your work published and out and available and out into the big bad world. And as I was saying before, I go through Kindle Direct Publishing. I do not pay anything direct up front with KDP. What happens with them is they will take a percentage of each book when it's sold, only when it's sold. So every time maybe I sell a copy of Raven's Rise, they will take their cut to cover the costs of having it up on the website, or kind of because it's published on demand, that money will go towards covering the cost of publishing the books, sending it out, all that kind of stuff. And I get my cut at the end of the process. And with independent publishing as well, you have more control over how much your book sells for. That is pretty much up to you to decide how much you're going to be selling it for. And you do have to be very much aware of like looking at other books in the genre that you write in, books that are roughly about the same size, how much are they selling for? And kind of having what you have roughly in the same ballpark. Because again, you've got to be kind of selling it for enough that you actually make a profit, but not selling it for too much that you don't actually sell any copies. And as I was saying before, there are different options for people to take, again, with Kindle Direct Publishing, with Lulu, with Barnes & Noble Press. So there are options open for people. And I think that makes it exciting, because people who may not have had work published before, who may have been dismissed, written off, ignored, but who have written some amazing work, are getting their work out there and kind of making a difference in the publishing world. But there are definitely cons with going down the self-publishing route. You essentially, if you are getting your book edited, if you're getting someone to do a professional cover for you, that will cost you money. And if you are going to be advertising your book, so if you're maybe having up posters put up, if you're having maybe an ad run on like social media, that will cost some money. So that all has to be taken into account and kind of factored into whatever budget you've set aside for publishing your book. And you also have to do a lot of the work yourself as well. As you have to get your publisher, you have to kind of get the cover art, make sure the cover art's done. You've got to promote it. There's no one else to blame if it goes wrong. It's pretty much you are the publishing house for your own book, so the responsibility lies pretty much on yourself. But also with independent publishing, it's more difficult to get your work taken in or sold through companies like Waterstones or any other kind of big kind of bookshop, because again, they've got to kind of take into account the profit they're making. They don't want to be giving up space to books that are not going to sell. Because if you go into any like big bookshop now, they are packed full of books and they're all vying for space, they're all vying for people's attention. Yeah, so it's pretty much every space for a book has got to bring in money. Because again, it's all about the money, it's all about keeping the business afloat, and especially during these difficult times. But again, there are options to take into account with that. If you can't get your book sold through a big mainstream bookshop, maybe have a word with your smaller local independent bookshops. They've probably got a bit more leeway, a bit more kind of scope for taking on kind of things like independently published novels or books, collections of whatever. So yeah, again, you've got to kind of look at your options. And yeah, so it does have to be kind of taken into account. If you are independently publishing your own work, you've got to do a lot of the work yourself. And as I was kind of saying earlier on, there's still a certain level of stigma with independent publishing or self-publishing, that you do get people who kind of look at it and go, oh, you've independently published, you've self-published, there's no one else wanting to publish your book for you. And it's that kind of thing of, oh, if you've independently published, then it can't be that good. And to an extent I can understand why, because there is a lot of independently published books out there that aren't very good, that are kind of very pulpy and trashy and are not very good standard. But then again, you look at some of the books that get published by big mainstream publishers and they're a bit trashy and a bit pulpy and not very good. So again, with independent publishing, it is very much kind of trying to get yourself heard above the noise and make yourself stand out and get yourself noticed by people who are wanting to buy books. So again, as I was saying earlier on, there have been people who have started out self-publishing who have made massive successes for themselves, and yeah, it's something that can be achieved. So the way I look at it is, whatever route that you choose as a writer, definitely look into every possibility and every pros, and all the pros and all the cons, and find the path that is right for you as a writer. Because as I was saying earlier, no two writers follow the same path. No two writers have the exact same experience. And yeah, you've got to kind of find what works for you as a writer. And yeah, and just again, it can be an interesting journey, it can be a frustrating and aggravating and emotional journey. So again, just enjoy the ride and find your own path. Yeah, and yeah, I'm gonna stop now for really gonna start to ramble and go off on one, because again, it's just one of those kind of things that we all have to enjoy what we see. Well, that was fun. It's just before I kind of was about to wrap up my video, my phone decided that it was going to die on me. So, gonna had to go quickly recharge. So, gonna do the last few sections of the video and that'll be it. So, where did I get to? Yes, I was talking about if you are planning or wanting to become a writer and you're wanting to look into your different options, you definitely look into both traditional publishing and self-publishing. You can choose to go down one route or the other, or you can be a bit of a combination. So definitely kind of sort of things that definitely a lot of different things people can look into and experiment with and have fun with, and that is the most important bit. If you are wanting to become a writer, no matter what route you decide to take or follow, definitely have fun with it, enjoy the ride, because yeah, what the reason is if we're doing it other than to have as much fun doing it as you possibly can. So I'm gonna stop just now before I kind of really start to waffle, and before my camera decides it's gonna throw another little tantrum. Hopefully you all enjoyed this video, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye bye.